Emotionally unavailable.
Welcome to Emotionally Unavailable, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of emotional availability and intimacy. I'm your host, Melissa Hepner, and I can't tell you how excited I am to have you join me on this journey of self-discovery and connection. Whether you're navigating the complexities of relationships or exploring your own emotional landscape, this podcast is here to inspire, empower, and entertain. So get cozy and let's explore the depths of human emotions together. Hello and happy Wednesday, little luminaries. I'm so sorry if you can hear my daughter yelling at the top of her lungs in the other room. It's spring break and it's been very loud today and I would like some quiet, but that's okay. Today's guest, I'm delighted to share with you. His name is Mikey Kamuta. He has a podcast called Mikey on Mute, and we really vibed over the fact that, Mama be talking about how I felt silenced my whole life, and you hear me talk with my guests about that a lot, so same kind of situation here, and he's just living out loud now, and I love that for him and all of us who have found our voices or still finding them even when they shake, and I'm incredibly grateful to get to share community with people who have gone through the darkness and are figuring their shit out and doing it in real time and learning how to be messy. And anyway, there's so much fucking conversation happening right outside my door, and it's making me feel a little aggressive, if I'm being honest. So sorry, Mikey, you are not getting the lovely introduction that I would like you to get because my family's pissing me off. So anyway, hi, Brian, when you hear this, you're annoying me right now. Thank you. So anyway, Mikey's great, and I feel really lucky to have met him and have this conversation. I'm looking forward to more communication, connection, collaboration with him, and look out for him. He's doing big things. So I love you, appreciate you. Thank you for such a soulful connection. I'm just really, well, for one, I'm distracted by the noise, but also really grateful. So now there's some other loud noise happening outside my door. I'm so sorry. So I'm gonna go. Love you, Mikey. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who listens. I really appreciate you. And I hope that you love this episode, which I know you will because it's a bomb-ass conversation. So here's me and Mikey.
Emotionally unavailable.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, I hear you. My lighting is like really shitty right now. It's just my bedroom lighting. It looks like I'm in a fucking bar.
It happens.
Like, hey, we're just over smoking up the rent. Well, I do vape a lot, but I don't think that's why it looks like that. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. Well, it's really nice to meet you, like, face to face.
Yeah.
So I was checking out a little bit of your shit earlier, and the best way I would describe what you're doing is that you went through your own dark night, maybe, and now you're like really passionate about sharing hope with others. Is that a good summary, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I ignored my mental health for the first 30 years of my life. And then, after going through kind of the darkest time, now I want to make it a little bit less taboo to talk about it.
Yeah. And see, I need to hook you up with Pete versus anxiety too, if y'all haven't touched base yet. But this is what's confusing to me. Does everything sound okay to you? Because
yeah,
something's a little off, but I can't. It's like there's an echo, but I can't tell. But I guess because I've always been a person that doesn't do small talk well, and have always been like hesitant to form connections because I just want to sit and talk about the real shit and get real deep, right? Which used to just look like trauma bonding. But even in the trauma bonding, there was talk of mental health. I mean, that's what we were, even in my darkest time, I was saying like, I really want to die, but like, so every time I hear, especially a male, because I think it might be more exclusive to males, that like you're giving a face or a voice to mental health, I still feel so surprised because I'm like, oh, I've talked about this shit my whole life. So obviously, if you're in my energy, it's because you let me talk about that shit. And if you didn't, you just don't get to hang out with me, you know?
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah,
feel
I get that.
silenced?
Yeah, for a long time, that's kind of the whole premise of the name Mikey on mute. I felt like I had to be on mute and couldn't really
I
talk
didn't even
about.
put that
I
together.
Yeah, I couldn't give the shit that was bothering me. I couldn't put it out there because that toxic masculinity that we're raised with is just like, no, you're not going to live up to being a man. You're not going to be how you're going to be. So for the first 30 years of my life, I was just okay. I got to suffer in silence, and this is what you do. And if you're emotional, like you're brought up, that's what women do, and you get this skewed idea of how the world works. So
Yeah.
now, if I can, be a little bit more open to other people, try to break that with my kids. I talk to my boys. I have two boys at 13 and 16. So I just try to be real with them, and I don't bullshit with them. I keep it pretty
Yeah.
standard about this is the shit I'm going through. So
Yeah. Well, and so I think I'm trying really hard to give a voice to this specific part of women because I do think that there is this misconception that we're all just sharing all the fucking feelings together. Like we're so fucking emotionally unavailable along with everyone else because what I realized in my dark night when I was really going to do it, I had no one, fucking nobody willing to sit in the fucking dark with me. And when I say no one, I mean not a single motherfucking person. And I have plenty of friends. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And most of them, 99% of them are female. And they're so fucking emotionally stunted that it got to where I just knew to stop talking. Like nobody was saying shut up, but they were avoiding talking about what I was desperate. I mean, because I really clearly remember being like, I was having some health stuff, but it was probably just related to fucking all the things I was doing to self-medicate. And but I was like, I was losing weight without trying. And you know how that's like the first sign, like that's on WebMD. That's like everything says like could be cancer, right? I was like, no, I'm not going to go get it checked out because if it takes me out, then I don't have to feel bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, that's an easy solution to all my fucking problems. Oh my fucking God, dude. The reactions I got to that were so fucking annoying. And I was just like, oh, it scares you? Why don't you sit down with me and actually support me instead of ignoring everything I'm saying? Like, I'm feeling very passionate about it in this moment, but I mean, I really have resolved most of that because I understand like they had a limited capacity. And then even me with my own limited capacity, I was the support system for everyone. I've always been the let me fix you so I don't have to deal with my own shit. You know what I mean? I mean, I think that was a subconscious and not a conscious thought, but you know what I'm saying. And so I am, as much as you're trying to give voices to men, I'm trying to dispel the myth that women are just naturally emotional. We are natural criers, yes, and we don't necessarily mind crying in front of others as a whole. I, on the other hand, was like, I felt stupid. I mean, just all these narratives that I had about what strong people do or don't do, and even though no one ever told me like I had to be a man or the man of the house or take on these particular responsibilities like men were raised to take on, I was told my own shit, like you're too sensitive. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
so and women do that to each other. Like the way we're programmed to socialize is just to talk shit or complain. I think men too, but you guys don't even go like that far with your communication either. I mean, I've known some gossipy men, you know, but like not really, not really. Mostly y'all are like, oh no, we don't even bitch about other people because, you know, like that would be sharing, obviously.
Yeah, that would be talking to other people. I don't want to do that. What are you talking about? Like, if I'm gonna talk, if I gotta talk shit, that means I have to talk to somebody. Nope, I'm not signing up for that. Nope.
Exactly. You're like, tell me how that fits in with being antisocial. It
Right?
doesn't. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. We're on the same page then. All right. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
no. And that's the thing is that I think I wasn't just silenced during the darkest part of my life. Like I grew up feeling like it was not okay to say any. Well, first of all, if we were to back way up, how old are you?
35.
Oh, you're 35. Okay. Well, so you're about 10 years younger than me, but that doesn't mean that you had it any better. Don't let me play. But were you raised by a boomer?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, fuck boomers. Okay. So that's the thing, is that all of us, if you trace it back to early childhood, young adolescence, we were taught explicitly to rub some dirt on it and walk it off. And that is for girls and boys, because people didn't know, even with a girl that's crying, how to deal with that. Like, well, stop crying or I'm going to give you something to cry about. And so it started then. Like, we were told, you're not allowed to feel because it makes me uncomfortable. So, and then I feel like we lost our autonomy too by all of the things that boomers made us do against our will to glorify them, because they only saw us as extensions and reflections of them. Now, I don't know what your relationship with your parents is like, and I'm not asking you to hate them if you don't, but I am asking people to hold perspective for the fact that they fucked you up, and it doesn't matter if they were trying their best or not. You don't have to hate them for it, but you have to be able to say it out loud. Maybe never to them, but you have to say, boomers fucked up bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I was raised, the things my dad taught me about being a man were all about status. You had to have money, you had to have the newest technology, which at that point was like a fucking Palm Pilot or something, but still.
Car phone.
Right? And so, like, I get that extension thing. Yeah. So he wanted me to go into the same kind of business he was in, which was pharmacy and all that stuff. And I didn't fit his little picture of what he wanted and anything like that.
Right.
And then my mom just kind of stood back and let everything happen because you didn't speak up to people, especially your husband. You didn't do that. And like, so by the time I saw my mom live any bit, like after they got divorced, she got sick. She got diagnosed with brain cancer. So it's like, okay, so she tried to speak up and now this shit happens. So
that fucking sucks. Did she recover from brain cancer?
No, she didn't recover, but they gave her 6 months. She fought for 7 years. So a big like fuck you to the doctors for giving her a timeline.
Yeah. That is pretty amazing for brain cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she fought hard, and I'm glad that she was able to do every extra minute she could. So
yeah. Well, I'm sorry you lost your mom. I get it. I lost both my parents too. That really fucking sucks, and it makes me mad for her. Like, god damn it! But I mean, 7 years post divorce, like those are probably the best years of her life. Even though she was sick and whatever, she probably made the most of it. So I'm gonna assuage my rage for that. Yeah, and I know now why I can have compassion is, first of all, they had it 10 times worse than we did, right? We can say that with pretty good authority, because the silent generation, fucking psychos, okay? Fucking psychos. I don't give a shit if your grandma's sweet now. She wasn't then. I promise you that. And so, okay, I can have compassion for that. I'm still going to say you fucked me up. I mean, I'm still going to say that. But I just think about them and I'm like, even men didn't really have an identity outside of this role that was cast upon them. Like, you're now provider. That's it. That's the only fucking thing you have to do is provide. You don't have to provide emotional assurance or attunement or love or whatever, but you got to make the money. And then, like, what we know now is, like, you have to go and, like, be a whole ass person before you can be good at anything, right? But they're just like, oh, let me mold you so that I can kind of make any shame or fear that I have go away. So if you just do everything I want, I feel safe, like, and I get it. I do. I mean, I lived a large portion of my life and my parenting life like that. But I mean, hello, you get presented with new information, you do better things. And that's the thing that really fucking pisses me off about boomers now. That's the only thing, is because the unwillingness to take in the new information. Like, you're exactly who you fucking were 45 years ago, and that doesn't make sense to me. I'm not the same person I was a year ago, let alone 10 or 20. Like, they don't change. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. I feel that in my soul. I feel it there.
Fucking drives me nuts. Because I mean, good for us, right? You know, okay, so you have kids around my kids' age, because I've got a younger one too, but I've got 2 boys. One's 22, one's actually gonna turn 18 this week. But raising some Gen Z kids kind of heals so much, because they don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? I was just telling a client this today, like, yeah, they don't fucking care. And I love watching them at a job. If I'm being honest, now, before I evolved, I was like, God, these fucking kids, they're not responsible. They're not whatever. No, they're not willing to let people treat them like a fucking piece of shit for fucking $8 an hour. And I'm like, here for that. I am so here for that. And they'll just quit a job. And I'm like, I love you. Because the boomers raised us to believe that our existence would be like theirs, which is you work somewhere for 50 years and you are presented with an office chair at retirement, maybe a plaque, and then you get a retirement check. And that's that. You don't quit a job. You care the most about your resume.
Oh yeah, I feel that. It's so. I think the people that are most pissed about how they act like that are the ones that there's that deep envy and jealousy that, like you said, we're raised to not feel that. Like, I today celebrated 10 years with my company of my day job. Normally that would be an exciting thing, especially like how I was raised. But like, I look at it and I look at starting pay other places, and I'm like, this should have been doing for a decade, that I'm getting paid less than starting jobs else over here and all that stuff.
Right. So, well, and now we know that companies are much more likely to promote externally than internally, and da da da. So I'm saying these Gen Z motherfuckers, they got it right. They fucking knew. They were like, I ain't no bitch, and I'm certainly not your bitch. But I mean, congrats on 10 years at your job. But that's kind of where I got to. Like, I used to work full-time in hospice, and as much as it felt like such a fucking calling on my life, it got to where just the normal jobby type drama was too much, and I was getting burnt out because, you know, I was getting older. I was like 35 when I left that job. Maybe, no, I may have been closer to like 37, but I was older to where like going in these like hood ass places like fucking started to scare me. When I was in my 20s, I was like, and what, bitch? You know, but I had a kid at 34 and I started to, you know, question my mortality a bit. And I was like, ew, bad people die too. And I'm so fucking tired of going in houses and being covered in cigarette smoke. And, you know, after I quit smoking, of course, because then I was like too good for the smokers, you know? Right. But yeah, like I got burned out really bad. And the shame I felt kind of after leaving a career after so many years was like pretty intense. But you said something that I feel like most people don't get. And that is that when anybody is scoffing at anything, it's because there's resentment there. And I tried to, because then I did a stint in education, baby. We're not going there today, but I tried to teach those people, like, I think that your frustration with what these children, and I'm not going to say they're not getting away with murder because they fucking are, but some of the things would be prevented before they happened if people could understand that you're just resentful that kids in school are treated better than you were. And I feel you, dude. Let's sit and talk about your experiences as a student, because goddamn, we were all mistreated as students. You know what I mean? Like, from my age group and up, and my age group had it way better than like the boomers, the silent generation. I've heard the stories. I mean, their teacher could slap them in the face right in front of God and everybody. You know, you at least had to have permission to spank a kid with a paddle in my age. But like, I get it. Let's cry about that then. Why you gotta hate on these fucking kids because they're getting an opportunity you didn't get? Like, the people who are so tired of hearing about trauma-informed practices are the people that we're not seeing. You feel invisible, and I feel that. I can resonate with that on a cellular level. But let's check in and let's quit dismissing everyone else because we want to dismiss this discomfort in ourselves.
Yeah. And once you feel that discomfort, it does build to an anger, and you're not sure. Like, most of us don't know what to do. A big thing I talk a lot about with my therapist is I overthought so many things that I learned to underfeel. And so when I started to open up and like be vulnerable and do things, feelings were weird to me and I didn't know what to do. And I had a lot of anger and I'm like, I don't like this. It's uncomfortable. But you have to sit back and understand that no one is out there purposely trying to make you feel uncomfortable by
Right.
exist, and you just have to kind of like take that ownership. And accountability sucks, but it's so beneficial when you're able to go, okay, I need to step back, take some of my own shit, and realize like where are these feelings actually coming from.
Absolutely. But it's a higher level of consciousness that they just haven't reached to even get curious about it. And I'm so happy that people are getting more open about saying, like, I didn't have a single fucking clue even how to start to feel. Because I, like you, oh shit, baby, I would just sit around overanalyzing every little thing, intellectualizing the shit out of it. I was a dream come true for a therapist because, oh, you can tell me all the right things, right? Okay, how come I didn't know how to fucking experience a feeling? I'm like, I think I am feeling. I feel like da da da. Nope, that's you thinking. What are you feeling? And I'm like, I don't fucking know. God. Like, I really had no clue. Learning how to experience a feeling was the craziest shit in my life. Once it happened once, then I was like, oh, because I talk about this a lot because it was really kind of earth-shattering for me. I was doing a grounding thing in the car because at first I didn't know if I was overthinking because that was so autopilot. It just happened without me knowing, unless I checked in with my body. Like I was feeling kind of ragey on the road, and which wasn't all that uncommon, but but my neck and shoulders were hurting really bad. And I was like, oh, that's a clue. You're overthinking. So I did a grounding practice and I was like, okay, you're out of your head, get into your heart. And I felt the drop from my head into my body. And I was like, that was fucking intense. Like to actually be in my body, feeling the sensations and not up here, just thinking with the little rat wheel just spinning over and over and over. And I was like, oh my God, that I'm never going to be the same again because I could feel it and then fucking release it the way all the gurus were saying. I hated that shit, Mike. They'd be like, feel it and then release it. And I'd be like, fucking tell me how, because I'm still pissed about it up here. I'm over here starting World War III. Some dumb shit. Do you think I want that? No, I fucking don't. I would love to just release it.
I feel you. And I remember one of my first grounding activities because, like, I was like, I don't know how any of this is going to help. I had such skepticism with it. And then we did one where it was like, I don't know, pretend to sit by a river and every time you have a thought, put it on a leaf and watch it go down the river. And like, it sounded ridiculous. And then I did it for a few minutes. And I remember distinctly the first time I realized the tension in my shoulders. Mm-hmm. Like, how did I never feel this before? And it was pretty scary because, like, I could tell I was not feeling good in my body.
Yeah.
But it was so like that light bulb moment that like I have not been mindful for 30 some years. Like
ever. I
just didn't do it.
Yes. And see, that's hilarious because I was 44 whenever. Wait, was I? I'm almost 45. I was 43. So, like, it sounds like we were having our little dark night around the same time. But, yeah, whenever I was like, holy fucking shit, my entire life, this is what I was supposed to be doing and had no idea what to do. I mean, it sounds so insane unless you've gone through this thing that we're talking about, but it really was a transformative experience to be like, oh, that's what that was supposed to feel like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like I talk to my wife all the time because she and I have such very different anxieties. Like I have generalized anxiety disorder. My body is basically on fight or flight all the time. Mm-hmm. And hers is more specific. It's agoraphobia, leaving the house, spaces she can't escape and stuff like that. And so it's so strange to me when she's so calm and all that. And I'm like, how do you just like exist with life? Like it didn't make sense to me. And until I learned some grounding techniques and some mindfulness, I got a few moments of like, have I not ever just sat and felt and existed? Like, it's a weird fucking feeling.
And that's all anxiety is, dude. It is your
Yep.
brain trying to keep you safe from
Mhm.
feeling. Literally, like, yes, it's trying to keep you alive, but somewhere along the lines, we told our subconscious that feeling is a danger. Because let's think about it. The first time we felt loss or rejection or neglect, betrayal, abandonment, or abuse, that did fucking hurt. Like, we never wanted to feel that again. We told ourselves we wouldn't. And maybe it was a subconscious thought, but our subconscious did not forget. So the whole rest of our lives, it was like, hey, 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 looks like a feeling. You probably want to get away from that because it will murder you right there in the jugular. And I mean, I really was afraid. I really was. I didn't put it all together until I started to. I mean, fuck, dude. I was feeling schizophrenic, honestly, because all of my little anxiety was okay, so I can't ever tell this without like explaining, but I was told about the book, The Finding Peace Workbook by Troy Love. And it broke shame down into archetypes and it explained what the narratives around those archetypes were. And I was like, this is it. This is the thing I'm struggling so fucking much with. I am covered in shame because this is what's coming up every fucking time I'm, having an explosive moment or whatever. Like one archetype is like, you piece of shit. And then right away, this other one's like, no, 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 no. You only did that because they da 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 da. It's their fault. And then here comes the judge again, like, no, you're actually quite the piece of shit. And then the other one's chiming in. And I was in such a dark place that they were getting so fucking loud that I really felt like I was schizophrenic because I have that in my family. And I was like, well, shit, man, I guess I made it to 40s. Like, this is it, bro. I was so scared of my brain. Like I was asking to not be left alone there at the end of this crisis because I was like, don't leave me alone. Like I don't really care either way at this point, but like it's like my kid being home isn't enough. Like this is like you have to be with me, please, because I can't be alone with my brain. It's so fucking hateful. And it was all about like what a piece of shit mom I was. Like, and I'm not a fucking piece of shit mom. Like, I'm imperfect, but that's the thing is I wasn't dealing with my perfectionism and I wasn't dealing with my fear. And then this shame is just compounding all of it. But that's what anxiety does is it lies to you over and over and it catastrophizes everything in front of you for that negativity bias to keep you alive. And I'm like, why are you telling me the worst case scenario is going to happen? I mean, every little thing. I would like to go camping here. Oh my God, they have buffalo there. Let me tell you 30 ways we're going to die if we do that. I'm just now in the last 5 months able to be like, or it might be fine. Could be fine. We could just assume it's going to be fine. And I'm doing pretty well with it. But like, I've had to dig so deep to understand the root of that shit that's I can be like, what else is true about this? Like, that's an option. Sure, a buffalo could actually kill you. You are right. You are right. Fact. There are buffalo in the Wichita Wildlife Mountains. You're right. What is the likelihood, though? Pretty low. I haven't heard a news story ever about a buffalo attacking a human in those mountains. So, whatever. But that's the way anxiety works.
Yeah, it's so strange to argue with your brain in a way because I love thinking of things logically. Like when I can break it down logically, shit makes sense. I love it. I love root cause. My therapists sometimes hate how logical I try to get, but my brain doesn't. My anxiety is emotionally driven. There's no logic to it and all that stuff. So
right.
Trying to tell it that these things are not going to happen or that there's a low chance of them happening, it's like it doesn't listen. It's like talking to a kid that doesn't want to shower or something like that. And you're like, just shower.
Oh, God, get your ass in the shower. No, absolutely. But like, are you doing inner child work? Because it's funny that you said it's like a kid. When I was just thinking that, like, oh, that's your inner child railing. That's who doesn't feel safe. Because see, you and I, we are in this version logical and rational human beings. We know what isn't dangerous, but our fucking inner child, man, they are scared as fuck, like of everything. I have to do so much work of just like, you're safe, honey, like you're okay. And then I'm like, I have to do a lot of like reassuring because I had to figure out where all these fears came from. Like, sure, I know it's trying to keep me safe and I understand negativity bias, but like, what made me feel so out of control that I decided that worry would give me control, you know? So
Yeah.
that's the shit I dig through to where I'm like, I guess. I mean, I had a pretty worrisome grandma, and she's
Hmm.
primarily who raised me. But I mean, boy, you want to talk about activated from the time you wake up till the time you went to sleep. That bitch, she was a narcissist and she was fucking in survival mode at all times. But see, that's the way I would describe myself too before, was from the time I woke up to the time I went to sleep. I mean, I was fucking in the red at all times. And it keeps you so agitated because you're disassociated. First of all, you're up here worrying or fighting with someone or overanalyzing. Whatever it is, though, you're up here and you don't want it to be interrupted. So when a real life person comes to interrupt this thing that you've got going on, I mean, I would just explode at all times.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out the disconnect there, but I knew, I was like, I need to be more mindful and present, but I couldn't because I didn't even fucking know why I wasn't in the first place.
It's you say these things and it just resonates so much with me because dealing with something in the real world or in front of me, it didn't take precedent. What was most important was dealing with this shit up here. And I caused so many things, like I disconnected from people. I didn't want to make that kind of vulnerable connection. I was pulled back, but it allowed me to focus on here. And I thought I was doing the world a service by being emotionally disconnected by it. And it turns out, no, I was doing myself a giant disservice by not being mindful. If I had just stayed out of my head and talked to somebody in the real world for 5 minutes, maybe it would have done something, but I didn't have time. Like my brain never gave me that break. And so,
No, there was never a break. And you couldn't even really pinpoint the shit either. You couldn't say like how you got to this particular little fight in your head. It was just like driving home and not remembering getting there. I mean, it was every day was the same shit, but a different thought spiral. Like I talk so much about doing my very best to avoid thinking if I don't have to, because my brain is only designed to solve a problem, figure some shit out, or whatever, but like it's not designed to feel, and it all it wants to do is keep me alive. So it really believes, based off my programming, to do that means to spin over and over and over. And God, I know that what a fucking agitated place you get in with that, because well, first of all, you're programming your subconscious in real time. So it doesn't know that none of these scenarios are real and that you're just creating all this. So you're getting all the fucking hormones and chemicals associated with this negative ass event when it didn't even happen. I mean, there was that. And I fucking hated everyone. And I definitely was attracting the same type of person around me because we were all just shit bitching nonstop. I mean, the only time I talked to other people was just to talk shit, like complain about our job or our boss or, so and so, or make fun of someone from fucking Facebook, whatever. But like, that's where I got my dopamine. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that was the only
I
way to
get
get
it.
any joy, was to talk shit.
I get it. You reach for things that just whatever brings you happiness at that point, and it's usually pretty fucking unhealthy until you figure that shit out. But
Yes.
yeah, just like I was reaching out to people, especially after my separation divorce from my first wife. Like anyone that was 180 away from what she was, that's who I wanted to talk to. And I put myself in some really shit positions
I bet
to
you did.
just to avoid being anything that was close to her. And it was fine in my head. I was like, yeah, this is fine. Everything's working out. And
Everything's
I
good.
look back and I'm like, how did that shit bring me happiness? Like what kind of fucking place was I in? But it worked at that point. So,
I mean, well, that's the thing, is like kind of the level that you were at. It probably didn't take very much to make you happy, right? I mean, but as
yeah.
you grow, you got to level up, and the people around you got to level up, or you're like, I don't know about that. I mean, I know all the things I did to just like fucking numb and quiet the voices, like just the nonstop thinking. And you wouldn't know that to like, I presented I mean, I was harsh, kind of, like if you were I had very low tolerance for people. So if you were, you meet people who are maybe a little quirky or whatever, I was a major bitch to those people because I would just try to avoid them, but I had no ability to pretend because I was in like the older I got and the worse it got, the more I was just like, just please don't come by me because I can't fucking be nice. So I would avoid people like that. But everyone else, I was the life of the fucking party. I was the bubbly one. I was the one giving all the advice and, having a good time, being a good time, taking care of everyone. So I think, I mean, obviously that's what freaked people out when I was like, oh no, I want to die. Like I'm being dead serious that I'm done. Like I have a plan. I'm doing this. I'm fucking done. Actually, I was smarter than to tell people I had a plan until after I decided not to. But that was my first, well, because I was already on the path of trying to become emotionally available whenever all of that happened. And so something just intuitively said, like, I have to tell people that this almost happened. Like it was over a break from school and I went back to school and I was like, bruh, I literally almost did it over break. Like I had a whole ass plan. I was going to follow through, but my kid's birthday was like 2 weeks away. And I was like, oh, that'd be really shitty, And then I like was going through the calendar, trying to pick a good time. Cause and there wasn't one until like 10 months later. So I was like, okay, that's when it's going to happen. 10 months. And then because it was so far away, I was like, okay, so let's maybe fix some shit between now and then. And talking about it really helped. And I just remember how much I felt like a fucking pick me telling people that I almost followed through with this plan because I know I was really uncomfortable when people told me shit like that. But I was like, surely to God, you guys know me well enough at this point to know, like, I'm not saying this shit for attention. I don't give a fuck if you actually think that, but like, I need help and I don't know how to get it right now. And so I just started talking. It was just like, yeah, this is where I'm at. And then I quit that job and that helped tremendously. And I've just started this whole thing and, living my life. But it's really isolating because you believe all that negative shit that you're telling yourself, like how worthless you are and just like a piece of shit and so mean. I had the most shame about that reactivity to people because I woke up escalated. I went to sleep escalated. So anytime somebody said anything, it was a trigger for me. I had no idea what was being triggered. I could say, oh, that triggered me. I didn't know what was being triggered though. Now I have such a firm grasp. Like if somebody says something, I know exactly which wound it hit and I know exactly why.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really tough to explain to people without it sounding like, because when we were younger, or if you heard about someone that wanted to end their life, it was such a heavy conversation that no one knew what to say, and that's carried over till now. And so until you get to that point, and I tell people like, I don't try to encourage people to be at that point, but like if you have been, there's a level of understanding that makes it so much easier to talk about. And that's weird to say, but like I'm glad that I had to go through those experiences and be at that point. And now, to me, that conversation isn't a weird conversation like it was maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Oh my God, just gave me full body chills because I remember the moment that I found gratitude for those experiences. It was when, in contrast, I felt that equal amount of light in my life. In reflection, I could see like, oh my God, that was the darkest. And now I'm at the most light. And you cannot reach the light without having experienced all that dark. And I just started crying because I was like, it was such a fucking trigger when people would talk about gratitude for those experiences. And I'm like, I agree, but you got to wait for people to be there. You know what I mean? Like we can say we are grateful, but people aren't there yet. And I'm not triggering their asses with that, but it is such a beautiful thing when you get there and you're like, and like, you're exactly right. It's just like if you haven't had a parent die, you're so fucking awkward when somebody else, you know what I mean? Like, didn't bother me at all when you said that. Like, I'm like, oh, that fucking sucks for you. But I also know, like, we're not some like defect because our parent died. You know what I mean? Like, we're fine. Like, yes, there's grief. Yes, there's loss. Yes, whatever. But like, it's not some weird fucking sad kid club that people act like.
but it's really just because, you know, it makes them confront the fact that they're going to lose people and they're uncomfortable. But about any of the things that we're talking about, if you haven't experienced it, that's the reason that people are so fucking stupid and awkward about it, because they just don't understand. I think they do on some level, but they've done everything that we were doing to try to avoid. That's what they're doing. We're asking them to confront the shit they're hiding from when we put our shit in their face. I get that. That's why I'm not mad at anyone. I attracted those experiences by allowing myself to be emotionally unavailable and have everyone around me be that way too, so that I could be really comfortable in where I was. But we cultivated our gifts in the dark, you know, like, I know that what you're doing is making a big difference. Like, I know that. And I know that what I'm doing is making a big difference. And fuck yeah, I would take that again, to know that there is hope on the other side of it. And god damn, when you get to that place where you're just like, shit, I do have control. Because remember how powerless you felt. Like, people just didn't understand if they were telling you, like, you can do something about this, you know, but I'd be like, fuck you, you don't know shit about shit, you know, just triggered as fuck again.
It's a moment where I have to kind of do that vibe check with certain people, because some things are really uncomfortable, and if it's uncomfortable, it makes people really on edge, especially about things they don't understand or they haven't experienced. And so I have to kind of watch myself, because I very much am very open. I will talk about my experiences with very little filter to it. I have to understand that not everyone is that way. So like, I can come across people are like, you just talk about this? I'm like, yeah, to me, it's not a big deal. To me, I'd rather talk about it than hold it in. I had 30 years of holding it in. Now I'm like a kid at a candy store that found feelings. And so I'm just kind of out there.
Have you seen that like graphic that's been passed around a million times that said, I'm healing out loud because I almost died in silence? When I read that for the first time, I was like, fuck yeah, like, for sure. Like, I have decided, like, because I don't have like a day job. Like, I quit my job and I do this, and I'm a therapist and whatever. And I just decided, me 100% of the time, like, I get to talk about whatever I want. I've made my bubble really small. I'm fucking living so loudly and don't give a single fuck. I hope it is uncomfortable, because you better start looking at your shit, because there is a better way. And it's not even that hard, but we think it's so fucking hard because we're just stuck in the middle of all of our fucking thoughts.
Yeah. It's like people, if I go back to mom passing and stuff like that, there's people that are very, like, they don't want to talk about parents passing because that makes them think about, you know, their parents passing. And I'm like, not to be rude to these other people, I watched mom take her last breath. That's not something that a lot of people get to do, but experience. And so, like, to me, I'm like, well, I'm on the other side of this. I'm open to talk about it. I understand that it might make you uncomfortable, but like, I'm not going to change who I am. And so that's kind of forced my bubble to be a little bit smaller. Like, I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm not trying to yell at people if they're not comfortable with it, but this is where I'm at in my life. And I'm not watering myself down in order to make people less comfortable, or more comfortable, I should say.
Exactly. Yeah. Cause that was the human condition put upon us by the boomers. That it right there. We had to water ourselves down and fit in a box to make sure that every fucking body other than us was comfortable. That's how little girls and boys have been sexually abused for so long, because we taught them to put their intuition to the side, their voice to the side, their needs to the side, and just do whatever to make other people comfortable. I've had so many fucking atrocious experiences that I could have even stopped, but I didn't, because I was like, well, that I don't want to make it awkward. What the fuck? You know, like, and you're so right. Like, we don't hate anyone for not being comfortable with who we are and the things that we want to talk about, but they are letting us know they haven't created a safe environment for us. And so we can't be around that. Like, we're no longer going to go where we're not safe. And if you can't handle true conversation, I'm not saying people have to be able to take it all. Like, if you were a person who was reliving verbally those last moments with your mom all the time, Yeah, we got to reserve a little of that for our therapist who's trained for that shit. Okay, I get that. But, you know, right after your parent dies, those are the things that you want to talk. I mean, my mom's death was kind of traumatic because she died of complications related to Hep C and cirrhosis. And she was incarcerated, and she got, I don't know if you've ever heard of esophageal varices, but it's little varicose veins in your esophagus. It's a really common thing with the cirrhosis and Hep C because of fluid that your liver is supposed to do one thing with ends up doing like a reflux thing. Actually, there are people with really bad like GERD and acid reflux who can get the esophageal varices too, but it's way less common. But what happens is when those tiny little blood vessels burst, there's a lot of fucking blood, and it was really traumatic. And she immediately was in a coma, came out of a coma. We thought she was going to be okay. Then she wasn't. It was 3 weeks of just like really fucked up shit. And I was in an alternate reality, kind of. I was not quite 22, pregnant with my first kid, early in pregnancy, spotting in pregnancy. I gotta like take care of myself. So I'm like disconnecting as much as I can, but it was so traumatic. I did need to talk about that shit. I was lucky because like my grandma was also traumatized. So we just sit around trauma dumping over the experience. My brothers weren't there and they didn't want to hear about it. They chose not to be there because they didn't want to see all of that. But I was like, but I need someone to share. Can you take the load, please? Because that was really fucking shitty. And I get people's discomfort with it. I really do. But like, I don't know if I'm only wanting to talk about it for this brief amount of time. Get it together, bitch. Like, you need to listen to your friend because I got shit to get off my chest. And if you can't, that was the thing, is that then I would never say a word to them that they hurt me by not listening, but I would build the most amount of resentment. Well, then guess what? Their day came and they needed support. And I was so fucking pissed that they would come to me for support. Because I'm like, oh, I couldn't say shit about my life, but now that it's you, was supposed to be here when it was never really their fault. I should have said something back then, but that's the way I did everything. Every relationship I had was full of tension and resentment because of me not knowing how to hold a goddamn boundary.
Yeah, and you get so upset because they're processing agreement on their timeline, and that shit pisses you off when it feels like you weren't given the same opportunity when that was your time. So I get that, because I have this tactic where I want to fix things right away. If something's bothering me, I want to take care of that shit right now. And the people around me, most of them process like, no, I need some time to get through some stuff before we do it. And it's just this anger builds in me. And so I've had to do a lot of work to understand that people have different processing speeds and different ways to go about it, and pull back that anger and go, okay, I'm feeling a little like, because we talked a little earlier about, if people, boomers were not treated the same or things like that, and they got mad. That's how I felt, like just trying to fix something. So it's really interesting when you sit back and go, oh shit, maybe they're not processing at the same speed I am, and maybe I need to take it back a notch and all that.
Well, and I wonder too if your speed is such because you taught yourself, we got to hurry and get over this because nobody cares. Nobody's got our back, and I got to get back to baseline. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's spot on, because when I was growing up, and I've talked to my therapist a little bit about this, it was very much, I learned early on to be very aware of everyone else's emotions and feelings. I quickly took on that role of, how do I make sure everyone else around me is good? So I was the person that, let's fix this problem now. I have shit to do. I have other people's emotions to regulate. Like, I got I
gotta go make sure their footprints or their footsteps in the house aren't too heavy, because that means one thing, and if they're too light, it means another. The facial expressions, the body language. I got a lot of reading people to do, so I got to get my shit out the way real quick.
Exactly. And another, like, you bring up facial, recognition and all this stuff. I'm very good about the extremes. If someone's extremely happy, extremely sad, I get those feelings. When someone is just at a baseline and stoic and there is a neutral look,
You're
negative
so fucking
bias comes up.
Yeah.
I'm like,
They hate
I
me.
need
God
to
damn
like
it, they
to
hate
tell
me.
me tell me what's going on, because did I fuck something up? Did I do something wrong? Did I say the wrong thing? And they're like, I'm literally just sitting here, and it's like, no, something has to be wrong. And
Yes, because you can't
it-
read that. You can't read the neutrality. Yeah, no, I remember
yeah.
being that way too, because I am very used to observing facial expressions and body language and even certain sounds. You know what I mean? So I'd be like, "What? Why'd you make that face? What face? Well, you just it's hard to explain, but you made a face. Or what are you thinking about? Are you good? You know,
Yeah.
so much shit. But I mean, God, it was real. It was so real in childhood
Yeah.
to have to know what like a certain like, you know, that's a sound that triggers a lot of people, like my husband included. His dad made that sound before he would do shit, and like my grandma would make that sound before she would do shit, and like it meant something, you know. And certain footsteps did mean something. A slamming of a door meant some other things, like you knew when you was about to get backhanded in the mouth, you know, like all the things. You knew what was coming when you learned to train your brain to see all the signals. So now when someone's not giving like angry or elated, it's like, what are you wearing a mask? What's going on? You know, what? It's scary. It's scary. It doesn't feel
It
safe.
is.
Well, how are you going to
It's
control your
tough.
environment if it's like, you know, chill?
Yeah, like, why you're not giving me anything to fix and control, and if I can't fix it, that brings me back to that shame. What am I worth? If I can't make
Yes.
everything else back, then that shame comes back around, and it's such a strong circle, that shame circle.
Oh
And
God,
so
yes,
that
it is.
it's like, my self-worth has been so wrapped up in making sure that everyone else is okay, and it's really hard for me as an adult now to understand that it's not my responsibility to regulate other people's emotions. That is really
That's
fucking
the
hard
number
for me
one
to
struggle
understand.
still. Yeah, that and asking for help. Those are the two things I'm still really struggling with. I do it as real shitty, but I'm doing it, you know. But I can't tell you, it's probably at least once a day that I have to say to myself, and that's fine. Like, you're not responsible for that. Because especially like, do you struggle with this with your kids, like overtaking responsibility for them? Because like it's really hard for me to even explain. Okay, this is a perfect example. My middle one, who's almost 18, he is really introspective. And if he's in a bad mood, he doesn't want you to talk to him, and he doesn't want to talk, right? You kind of get the vibe immediately when you pick him up and he's being a little, you know, little bitchy. And I'm like, oh, first of all, it hurts my feelings. Okay. So there's that. And then I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm over here tense and anxious because I want to fix his mood. But I also know he hates that shit, right? And I also know it's not healthy. So I'll be over in the fucking driver's seat. This just happened today, as a matter of fact, because he got in the car and was, you know, I always observe his facial expression, but he also has this too cool for school look that he uses when he's just walking, you know? So it's hard with him because I'm like, he's also on the spectrum. But so he gets in the car, he's being shitty. And I was like, ew. And I went through a little thing where I was like, so fucking rude that I have to like sit in silence in this long ass drive because this motherfucker's in a mood. But then I was like, but actually, what you actually feel is you want to fix this shit. You know that you can't. So what else can you do right now? And I was like, not care that he's in a bad mood. Like, understand that this is a part of living, and I can turn up my music if I want to. I can make a phone call if I want to. I can just think about something happy if I want to. But whatever it is, it can't be me sitting over here tense because he's in a mood. His mood isn't like, it doesn't impact me unless I let it. And he's not being rude to me. He's being quiet, and I want to talk. And then after a few minutes, he did. Like, we got into a lovely conversation. But I find myself in positions like that a lot where, like, and my oldest, he moved back home in August to go back to school. He's got a really big personality, a lot like mine. And so he can be kind of a barometer in the house, you know, like if he's escalated, we're all escalated because he's going to make it everybody's problem, just like I used to. So I've gotten to where I'm like, or you can just go chill in your room and pretend it's not happening, because that's not your fucking. He's upset because he lost his keys once again with his ADHD ass. You looked for the keys, you didn't find. Go to your room. I mean, I always have to remind myself, like, your level of responsibility for your children only goes so far, but we believe we're responsible for all of it. all of it. We got to make them happy. Got to make sure they get their favorite foods every day, not just food, their favorites. Like they got to love what you make for dinner or buy for dinner or whatever. They got to have the best clothing brands because that's what makes them feel good. All the things. I mean, I am the guilty party here, not them, me. Mm-hmm. So that's the part that I didn't realize how much weird shit I had around parenting and just my shame, feeling like I was fucking it all up because I couldn't fix every one of their problems. Like, what the fuck? No one ever said you had to, honey.
It's strange. I don't remember my parents ever specifically telling me how to parent or anything like that, but I think just by their actions, I learned, and it became where I am very responsible for my kids' emotions and feelings, and if they're successful and all that stuff. And it's taken a lot of not only self-work, but I think what's been a blessing is my wife. So my two kids are from previous relationships. My wife has come in the last 2 years, and she is able to kind of see it from like an outside perspective. And so like when I am like, I need to do this because Gage needs to be here, blah, 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 or something like that. And she's like, you don't need to, like, it's not your responsibility to make sure everything is taken care of. Like part of life is failing and feeling upset. And so like, he's super forgetful. He's great at academics, but common sense is not there for him.
Yeah. That was,
and it's like,
yes.
And I get so anxious and worried, and I can see it in him too. He has the anxiety as well. But like, if I don't take care of all this right now, and my wife has to like step back and go, nothing bad's gonna happen. Like it's not your, like
I have to do that too. Yes. Yeah. Well, but see, here's the thing too. I in college was taught child development from a person who was also teaching in an elementary school, and she was a fucking bitch. Okay. So she took my already paranoid mind and made me a lot more paranoid about what teachers will think of your child if you do these things and how that impacts the way they treat your child. So I was ate up about that all the time. Well, now I got this third baby. She's in 5th grade. She's much younger than the boys, all this shit. And I'm tired. I'm almost 45. I cannot bring myself to fucking care about school. Like, do I want you to get an education? Yes, I do. But literally during virtual learning days, when we had some ice here, I was like, she got this perfectionist thing too, right? I'm trying to rid her of it. So she's like, oh my God, I don't know. And I was like, well, fucking just guess. Like, you've gotten all the other ones, right? Fucking guess. You get one problem wrong. Who fucking cares? She's like, really? I was like, I don't give a fuck if you get 4 wrong. Like, yeah, fucking guess. She was like, okay, guessed. I was like, right. Like, you don't have to stress this much about everything. I don't fucking care. I don't care at all. And when we went to parent teacher conferences, I was actually a little surprised at the way they were characterizing her, because she is a rule follower and she's very sweet. And they were saying like how happy she is at school and she's very friendly and whatever. I was like, perfect. That's all I need to know. Don't give a fuck about anything else. And then they were like, she is fine with mediocrity. Like the fact that she's like so far behind and da-da-da. And I was like, fucking pissed that they were talking like this in front of my baby who looks up to them so much. And I was like, I would say that actually it's a perfectionism standard. She is rejecting the math before it can reject her because she can't be perfect at it. She hasn't reached that level of growth mindset where she understands that like eventually I can be good at this. I keep reconfirming to her, like, baby, you're a June baby. We put you in school when you were 4, for pre-K. I didn't want to do that because I was a June baby, but we kept having childcare issues and I worked at a school. So I was like, let her just go to pre-K. But I remember how much of a struggle school was for me. And I just said, when I got older and my brain was fully developed, I can learn anything now, but I didn't think I could. So just remember, like, just because you can't now doesn't mean you'll never get there. And I was really glad that I like maintained decorum with the teachers and was able to be like, she wants very much to be exactly what you want her to be. But because she wants that so much, she shuts down when she's not that immediately. And they were like, oh, that makes sense. And I said, she's having some hormonal shifts and a little trouble getting to sleep at night. So I think a lot of what you're describing is a lack of concentration. But at home, I'm like, look, this baby goes to school looking trashy as fuck sometimes. And I'm like, I like your outfit. Because what does it fucking matter? She feels good. That's what we want, right? We want our kids to feel confident. Okay, baby, that's what you want to wear, I guess. But before it was, oh my God, if she wears that, the teacher's gonna think, and then they'll probably call DHS. I have huge DHS trauma from childhood. So like I used to live in fucking fear that DHS was gonna show up at my house. I mean, I can't even tell you. When my boys were little, you weren't allowed to make mistakes. You had to look perfect. Even just going to the grocery store, I'd be like, I can't go because I have to get this kid ready. And that's just, ADHD, that's too much energy. Like, I don't want to do that. So then I'd be stuck at home because I can't make my kid look perfect out in the store. It ruled my brain all the time, taking this level of responsibility for these kids. And now I'm like, well, I guess they're going to fail. And guess what? That middle kid, he's failed a lot of classes, but guess what? Now he's in alternative school, making all the credits up, and he's actually just about to graduate a couple months early. So who fucking cares, right? Like, I don't give a fuck. I don't even care if people know he's in alternative school. And before, I didn't say when shit was going on with my kids. No one knew if one of my kids was struggling because I'm a perfect parent, obviously,
as we all are. I wish I knew somebody that was actually a perfect parent, because it doesn't exist. But it's so crazy. We whether it's with parenting or work or just life in general, we spend so much mental energy trying to make sure that we are perceived in a good way, and it's fucking exhausting. I live a life full of comparison. Like we all have a lot of comparison stuff, especially with social media. It's very easy, but it's so like, why do we spend so much mental energy in making sure that we're going to pass some tests by somebody else? And it seems so ridiculous when we logically sit down and think about it, but I can't shake that for 100% of my life. I'm getting better each day about it, accepting that I don't really care if people think I'm one way or the other, but there's still that voice inside me that's forever going to be, hey, you need to impress everybody else, because if they're not happy, you can't be happy. And it's just, that opens a whole different can of worms.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of my self-talk now is like, you know what? That's none of my business. That's none of my business. And what happens if they don't approve? Literally nothing, except for if I choose for something to happen. But otherwise, it really doesn't fucking matter. I mean, less and less people approve of me every fucking day because I'm just getting real vocal, about all my shit. And I don't give a fuck. And I wasn't going to sit there. Oh, God, 5 years ago, I would have sat there kissing those teachers' asses. Now, I would have overthought it and gone home and sent a shitty email, but perfectly crafted to make me look like the good guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I was like, no. Let me offer a different suggestion about what's going on here. And we got to the bottom of it. Like, I was like, well, she is talking to me about like the fact that she failed the social studies test. She was pretty upset. She cried and said she can't understand the passages. So I said, okay, you know what, honey? Then quit fucking reading the passages before you read the question. Read the question. Then your brain knows what to look for when you're reading. When you're just reading, there's a lot of information in there. So your brain's like, which part do I pay attention to? That's fine. Now you know what to pay attention to. Do that. And they were like, oh, yeah, we've been trying to teach them that too. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, I'm not just a piece of shit parent because I don't fucking care enough to be up here selling snacks on the, Fridays and volunteering. No, I don't fucking care about PTO. I don't. Not even a little bit. Because what's the worst that's going to happen? The kids don't get extra candy? I don't fucking care.
Right. I feel that. And it's very strange to see the different dynamics. My 13-year-old is involved in a lot of things, a lot of different sports and all that stuff. So a lot of activities where we have to go out. My ex-wife and I have very different approaches to how we go about it. She very much wants to be a part of that parent crowd where she fits in and all that stuff. I've reached a point where I show up. I don't care if I'm in my joggers and a t-shirt. I worked all day. Like, I don't care. I'm here. And I don't want to, like, I'm not going to impress you, but I don't get, I don't have a lot of those parents come up to me and talk to me, and that's fine by me. Like, I'm
not trying to make friends with the other parents.
No. And so back in the day, I'd get very upset with myself because if I didn't have their, understanding and support, like, what was I worthy? on some lower level. Now it makes my day when none of them talk to me. Excellent. I just want to come here, watch my kids, support them,
Yes.
and go home.
Please don't talk to me. I mean, it's my worst nightmare for a parent I don't know very well to come and try to talk my ass off while I'm just like, I'm only here because I have to be. You know, like,
Yeah.
can I just watch the kids so I can go home? Because some activities are more fun than others to watch. Like my one son, he's in jujitsu and shit like that. It's scary to watch, but it's also fun. But then, you know, there's other things that I'm like, I would rather be doing something else right now, but I'm going to be here loving on my baby. But like, I don't want because here's the deal. Most of the people are the people we're talking about. They have no identity outside of their children. They don't have any self-esteem. They don't feel worthy of love and belonging. And then they just leech on to anyone willing to like engage in that. And I'm like, that's not me, honey. That's not me.
Yeah.
I know I'm sweet and I'm fun and I'm hilarious, but like, I don't want to fucking have this conversation with you, but I also don't know how to make you go away. So, and if you just sit there and try to be quiet, oh, they'll feel the silence. They'll feel it. Yes, they will. They go, finally, someone who will listen to me. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to listen to you, man.
It's crazy. There's this need to fill space, and I'm guilty of it in the past. Like, if there is silence or space, I usually have that negative bias or whatever. But like,
Yeah,
I've also been
that
learning
same as neutrality. Yeah.
to embrace it, because yeah, like if you're talking to me, you're gonna listen to yourself talk. If I'm checked out, I'm not here for it. I have some really deep, meaningful conversations with other people. That's not the kind of conversations I'm having with these other parents. And if you are only there to feel some kind of justification or want my approval of how you've raised your kid to do this sport in this way,
Thank you.
you're not getting it from me. Like, I'm here because I have to be. I'm not here to stroke your ego.
Right. Yeah. Because you know what they do. They want to come in bragging about I think what freaks me out the most is the people who are bragging about really harsh punishments or consequences that they give their kids. And I'm like, okay, is it because I come off harsh and kind of bitchy that you think that that's how I treat my kids? Like, why do you think I'm going to be so receptive to that? Because I'm not at all. Like, I'm famous for, really? Huh. Yeah, I just kind of think, and like I have to give an alternative view because I'm like, well, for me, you do you, but for me specifically, not you, not talking about you, not saying you're doing a bad job. We both know I am, but I wouldn't do that myself. So, but it's like, have you seen the shit about that Ruby Frankie lady? Yeah, I feel like some of these parents are like her, to where I'm like,
Yeah.
you ain't even a boomer either. You're a fucking millennial who didn't get it right. Well, that Gen Z kid's gonna get you back. I promise you that.
Right. It's so interesting to see the way, like I said, we've touched a little bit on it, but the way that Gen Z just handles everything. I was talking to my wife the other day about a video I saw like on a TikTok algorithm or something like that. I was just like, I read the comments, which is usually a dangerous extreme sport to do online, but reading the comments, and I'm watching these people like stand up. They don't give a shit. Like, they will call you out for being
Straight up
using slurs that you shouldn't be using, or language you shouldn't be using, behaviors that are bad. Like, I did not have that in me as a kid. Like, I wasn't gonna talk to an adult like that.
no.
They don't care. They will tell you straight
Because
up.
we were told explicitly that we had to show respect to every adult, regardless. Even if they were treating us in an abusive manner, we were still to be respectful. We didn't teach our kids that. And so they're not. And I love them for that. They're teaching us how to get it right now, because we knew on some subconscious level of the programming we received that we didn't want to pass down, but I really don't think most of it was very conscious. And we just somehow left that shit, some of that programming we didn't pass down. So like, even this is kind of controversial, so I don't know if I'll keep this in, but even like the lack of like patriotism in Gen Z, you know, like I was taught really explicitly about the Pledge of Allegiance, about the flag, about respect for military, da 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 da. Well, when all of the shit came around with the kneeling during the whatever and all that, I was kind of shitty about it because I didn't get it. And then I was talking to my oldest, who was only about 18 at the time. And it was right after a teacher said to me, like, no, I don't force my students to do the pledge. I think it's a little weird that we're forcing kids to pledge their allegiance to a country 5 days a week. Like, the only people I know who do that are communist countries. Like, it just seems weird. And I was like, damn, you're so right, though. So then I was talking to my kid about it and about the kneeling during the national anthem. And he was like, I just was like, well, for me, the flag is about the military men and women who have like sacrificed their lives. And he's like, yeah, but mom, even the military system is so fucked up. They like capitalize on poor kids and, you know, like just all this shit. And I was like, oh gosh, you're so right. So really, I can have an immense amount of respect for the people who serve, whether they've lost their lives or not, and still hold the value that like maybe these things shouldn't be forced on anyone, and we get to decide what we do and don't find valuable. But Gen Z doesn't really give a fuck about like allegiance to this country, and recently it's become kind of apparent why.
Yeah, I think that thing always goes back to, it's hard to understand two things can be true at the same time. I struggle with that. And so, yeah, it is weird because we were raised to, you go to a sporting event, you are, pledging allegiance to the flag. And it was something you just did. And it was ground into us. And like, so proud of these kids for being able to make sure it's in their values to do it. Because, yeah, you don't want to just go against the flag because it's cool.
Yes,
or
yeah.
but
know
if
why
you
you're
feel
doing
strongly,
either of those.
yeah,
Yeah. Like if you're
I
going to stand and pledge, do that because you feel that. But if you
right.
choose to sit, do that because that's what you feel, not because of making waves either direction.
I strongly, when it comes to my kids, give them options on what they want to do. It's really hard not to force them to do certain things. But like, I know that growing up, I was forced to do things and believe things that they didn't fit my values. So yeah, it's hard to step back and go. I always bring it back to like that argument of all the people that are mad about student loan forgiveness are the ones that already paid their student loans. And I like, I get it. Like, if you are raised and like you had to do the Pledge of Allegiance 5 days a week and you had to go to, or maybe you had to go to church if there was a religious school or something like that, there is this fear of like, well, why do you get to not do that? Like, that's not fair. And so we have to step back and go, okay, well, if this fits your values, do it. But yeah, like you said, regardless of which side you're on, for any issue, just make sure it fits with your values, stand up for it, and don't do things just because someone told you you should do them.
Right. I see a lot less imposters in Gen Z than I have anybody else. And I noticed the difference too. Like my daughter, she's an alpha, but like she's pretty solid in who she is. You know what I mean? Like she's like, I like this or I like that. And that's cool that you like this or you like that, but like that's not for me. You know what I mean? Like she's like, yeah, I like this food, versus like I remember my oldest on the food thing, like he was going to pretend to like or not like something based off what his peers did. So I feel like every generation now is just getting a little more strength and a little more love for themselves. And that's truly like my whole mission is I want people to love themselves because that's the highest frequency. And you start to be able to feel love from others because the only true love is the love that you have for you, and anyone around you will just be reflecting that back at you. But I thought love was dopamine and adrenaline and serotonin and oxytocin. So anytime I wasn't receiving those chemicals, nobody loved me. And I believed it. I believed my whole life nobody loved me like I loved them. I wasn't loving shit. I was fucking, trying to get dopamine and adrenaline.
Yeah. And I for the longest time, I thought external validation was how I received love. I couldn't operate unless I knew that someone was telling me I'm doing a good job, that I look good, that I'm, being a good boyfriend, husband, whatever it may have been at that point. And so it was a real shock when I learned, like, oh no, I decide what, if I'm good at, and does it stick to my values, and I can love myself like that. It's a weird thing to go from one extreme to like the other here with, okay, I used to rely on everybody else to make sure that I feel good about myself and I feel loved.
That you were
Now,
worthy. Yeah.
yeah. And now to be able to look at myself and go, no, that responsibility is kind of up to me and not up to everybody else. It's so it's like seeing like white, take my glasses off, clean them a bit, and you see things in a totally different way.
Yeah, because you're not seeing everything through your wounding anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Oh, I love it. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for letting me keep you so long too. This was a really good time. I'm grateful for the connection. We got to stay connected. And where you said you're in Texas?
No, I'm in Wisconsin.
Oh, that's so far.
I know.
Where
I'm in the
is
middle
Wisconsin
of nowhere.
from Oklahoma? Are you good at geography? I'm not.
I'm so bad. Like, if I had to fill out a U.S. map, I would be so fucking lost.
Okay, good. Because me too, bro. I don't even play. Like, I know nothing about it, if I'm being honest. I'll have to look because I really am trying to like do more things with people,
So from Oklahoma, if you were to go north through Kansas and then go a little bit east to go through Iowa, and then the next state up going through that way would be Wisconsin. So it's kind of like a little northeast. So it would be like almost meeting somewhere in between Iowa and Missouri. It would be like a middle ground.
Right. And okay, I've made friends with the Social Leopard girls. They're amazing. They're in Indiana. So we could potentially get a bunch of like podcast people and meet up in Illinois even.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be a long drive for me, but I don't give a shit about that. So, I mean, that would be really cool. We should try to figure that out.
Yeah. I really want to get some traveling in. I really love these connections. I love that you allowed me to sit down and just talk. And this is such a real conversation just where I could be myself. And after a Monday at work today, I was just like, I just need some fucking real talk. I deal with so much corporate bullshit talk all day long. And I'm like, I need to talk to some real fucking people. So.
God, I feel you so hard on that. And I don't do the canned shit, like everything is just organic and natural. I think one person made me kind of nervous before they were on. So I was like, what am I going to ask them? So I actually thought of something so I'd have a direction to go if it didn't go well. But otherwise, I'm just like, it's the vibes,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to vibe out with people.
I'm like, I put together like a very basic template that if I feel like it's not going anywhere naturally, I'll ask that question. But I love the times that I'm like, the conversation was so good. We just sat down and talked for an hour or so and didn't even have to, nothing was forced. And that's what I love about it. So
me too. I every now and then it happens to where I'm like, shit, what else do we talk about? But mostly this is my jam. And as somebody who also just felt so silenced my whole life, this fills so many holes for me. Just getting to talk. For a minute, I went through that thing of gosh, I talk too much when people are on my show or whatever. And I'm like, I don't fucking care. I'm not caring about it. Every now and then I'll get off and I'll overthink a little bit. And then I'm like, I don't care. I really don't. This is my goddamn show. I'll fucking talk as much as I want.
Hell yeah. And the guy I just talked to before this or whatever, after we got done recording, is like, I'm so sorry I went off on this tangent. I'm like, why are you sorry? That's the whole fucking point. I want you to be able
that's what we're doing.
Feel comfortable talking and spill your guts, man. That's all I want to do. So I don't know. I think it goes back to that we're programmed to people please, and if we feel like we talk too much, we have to apologize. And fuck that. No need to apologize.
At its finest.
But like I said, I appreciate this. I'm super excited for more conversations with you.
Me too. We should do a live one day.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be down for that.
If you know how, I don't really know how, but I could Google it. I did it with Rena that day, but I didn't fucking do any of it. She did all of it.
she is so smart with all that shit. I'm just like,
Fucking Jerry
I'm like,
Springer
you
show
are
taught
like,
her some shit.
right?
I know
Like,
she and she's so natural at all of it. You know, like
yeah,
I feel like I know her nuances enough to know when she's like being a producer or whatever, but like she's flowing right along with it. Like, and I'm like, oh, we're going in that direction now. Okay. Like, I just love it. I love it. I love it. But she's
yeah,
so great.
absolutely. Very
Yeah,
much look
we'll
forward to
figure
this.
out ways to collaborate, man, because that's what I'm all
Yeah.
about that right now, because two voices are bigger than one, you know?
Absolutely. Love it.
All right. I hope you have a good week.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Emotionally unavailable.
Hey, if you have not provided this podcast with a rating, please go do that now. If you find me on social media, you can see my link tree and it will take you to both Spotify or Apple for you to leave a review and a rating. 5-star, obviously, so much. Okay. Also, on that link tree, you can get to my website, empoweredwithmelissahepner.org, where you can sign up for a one-on-one session with me. I'm calling these guidance sessions because I will utilize my therapeutic background along with tarot and astrological insights, if you're comfy, and guide you to the life that you're in love with. And if none of my current offers are within your budget, please don't hesitate to select the complimentary session option. I created that option as part of a commitment to my community and to access to mental health care. And I want to make sure that people are using that. So feel free to refer that link out to anyone that you want to. It is a one-time only. All of these sessions are like a one-time so that I can make a bigger impact with one-time sessions versus recurring sessions. So you can see my menu on my website, and you will also see workbooks and membership communities available. So I hope you'll check it out.
Emotionally unavailable.
INDEPE and cut.